the story about how it all came about is long, and I've told it before. I had some incredibly, what you might call paranormal. They're not para, they're actually normal, but they're paranormal compared with the human perception of normal, which is very different. So it was like something happened to me. And like I said, it's a long story about it built up. You imagine that you're living your life, and you're living your life in a bubble, and within that bubble is your reality. And then someone comes along and without any warning pops the bubble. And suddenly information, concepts are pouring into your conscious mind in a way that's so massive, it's like pressing too many keys on a computer. The computer freezes. I can't process this information. It's too much. And that was like it for me. And for 3 months in early 91, if you'd have asked me my name, I'd have checked, because I had this bombardment of information and concepts and all these things that were happening. And then as eventually a computer goes zzz and freezes and everything comes back, after 3 months, and of course the Wogan show was right in the middle of that, the computer unfroze. And people were saying to me, I thought you'd gone mad, you're the same David. I've always known. I appeared to be, but I wasn't. I was the same, basically I am now, but I saw the world completely differently. I could see how dots connected instead of how things seemed to be random and apart from everything else. And the whole thing changed. But, you know, I have this phrase I've used in 1 or 2 of the books. Life tends to give you your greatest gift, brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmare. And when I look back at that time, because of the Wogan show and all that stuff, I got the most extraordinary, historic levels of ridicule. I couldn't walk down the street in Britain without
I don't think people nowadays could quite grasp that, but it's like trending on Twitter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's But weirdly,
what a gift.
So I couldn't go into a bar. A comedian only had to say my name, no joke necessary, and they got a laugh. And you'd think that was a nightmare. And it wasn't nice to experience. But you know what, mate? It set me free. It set me free of the prison. I know a lot of young people watch this and this podcast, and I know a lot of young people get really screwed up, even to the point of suicide, because of what's said about them on social media and all that stuff. Well, most people live in a prison called fearing what other people think. And when you fear or you're concerned about what other people think, you're not you anymore. You are what you are expected to be by those you don't want abuse or criticism or ridicule from. So you conform to the norm, so that you're not called crazy. You're not laughed at in the street or laughed at on social media and all that stuff. And you have gone. You're now a construct of someone else's version of what you should be. And most people are not saying what they really believe. They're not living their life as they really want to live it, because they fear what will other people think. What will the people at work think? The people down the bar? What will my mother say? And all this stuff. But when you are faced with the scale of ridicule that I went through, you've got a choice. You can end up in the corner, shaking, or just withdraw from the world, or you can come out honed in the fire. And not really honed in the fire. It's basically,
I know exactly what you mean,
not becoming something so much as letting go what was imprisoning you before, which is the fear of what other people think. So when people ask me a question, I don't go through mental gymnastics. How do I put this in a way these people will think I'm okay or credible or sensible or intelligent or something, or won't think I'm mad? I just say what I feel. And if people, you know, don't like it, well, they can do the other thing. That's quite fine with me. And it set me free. And so, you know, I get enormous abuse on the internet stuff, as well as enormous support now. But it goes in one ear and out the other. It doesn't affect me, because what I would say to, young people that are affected by this, you're the one with the power. The power is not with the abuser, it's with the receiver in how they receive the abuse. Mm-hmm. And you can say, you can fall apart because they're saying this stuff about me. And that's a reaction to it that's going to destroy you. Mm-hmm. Or you can say, I don't give a fuck.
It's weird.
I would say to these kids, just very quickly, you cannot overestimate. You cannot overestimate the power of not giving a shit. Because people are kept in line. They're kept in line in what they say, what they do, by giving a shit. People that get upset by what people say about them online do so because they give a shit. People won't expose this death cult, which it is in the end. They're freaking evil. They make psychopaths look like fucking, Mary Poppins, these people. But they won't expose them because they fear the consequences of exposing them. I don't give a shit. And therefore, that's why that book's like that. And other people wouldn't write it because they think, well, what the consequence of me writing this? And consequences, another prison that people live in. Instead of doing what they feel to be right and what they know to be right, and just doing it, because people say, oh dear, what do you think the consequences of writing that book were going to be? I don't give a shit. Because if I consider consequences of doing something that I believe to be right, I'm actually considering compromising doing what I believe to be right because I fear consequences for me. No, you do what you believe to be right. Consequences are a prison, because if you're all the time considering consequences, you'll always persuade yourself there's a very good reason not to do what you believe to be right because the consequences seem too much for you to accept.
A lot of people never achieve their full potential because they're worrying about what everyone else is going to fucking say. And I went through something not the same as what you went through, but I've had a few people laughing and joking about me recently, and it's like one of the best things that's ever happened. It was like, because it's a one thing to not give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's another thing to really be tested.
Yeah, exactly.
On how little of a fuck you give.
Yeah, exactly.
And when everyone's laughing at your point, saying shit about you, then you really have to fucking prove it then. Yeah. And not many people can.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I think everyone in their life, at one point or another, would be benefiting from that, getting that experience, because it just makes you be the best person you can be.
I get this abuse thrown at me and this ridicule, and I'm like, thanks for sharing that with me. Have a nice day. Don't give a fuck. And Chris, you don't have to. You don't have to be affected by other people. You can choose not to be.
That's when you get your mental strength from within you, and not from what other people think of you and tell you you are.
Exactly.
That's when abuse and praise just become the same thing. And that's that poem, that Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, Rudyard Kipling.
You treat those fucking two imposters just the same. That's exactly what
they are. Twin imposters. They are twin imposters. You can tell me I'm God's gift to the world, and you can tell me I'm a complete idiot and arsehole, and I'll receive both in the same way.
We do live in a time where there aren't many solutions offered for that. And some people say you're a harbinger of doom or whatever, the kind of guy who just... And I actually, hearing what you just said then, and I'm not accusing you of that, I see now why you feel you can say those things. But I guess the interesting side to that, for me, is we are debasing where a lot of people derive their happiness from, which would be the idea of a family, which is responsibility towards others, and the idea of a collective society, which is responsibility towards others. And so there has to be an element of giving a shit for other people. But I am often left with a bit of not an empty feeling, because I find you very compelling, but quite a, well, what's the point then? Sort of feeling after I hear a lot of what you say. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's and
I don't mean that to get at you.
One of the things, one of the major areas that I write about is the nature of reality and how our perceptions become our experience. So if you go into that level, I write talk enormous amount about solutions, because a few people control the human race and the direction of the human race, because the human race has given its power to those people, given its power away. People are giving their
consciously or unconsciously,
or both. You know, they're giving their power away to internet trolls. I mean, I said the other day on the internet, it's not you that needs the help; it's the trolls.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so what do you think of this troll that said this about? Well, they're horrible. So what are you letting them affect you for then?